Hello and welcome everyone to this 28th episode of the Backwards K Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Chris Hasbrock, and I'm joined by my co-host, Scott Kaiser. Scott, my man, how you doing, buddy?
Every time you throw the number out there, it throws me off because I'm like, I don't know what number one ever.
I know I've had to go back and actually. That's why I keep throwing it out there so that way I remember.
No, I know that's your way of doing that, and I'm like, thank you for because when I go to the end of the show and I have to number the episode, I'm like, if it wasn't for Chris, I'd have no idea what number this was.
I probably screwed up along the way somewhere, but no, but that's what I've got. I've got 28, so I think we're in good shape.
Fair enough, man. I am doing well. Another week. Dodgers.
Well, we skipped a week because of the national championship game, and there really wasn't. I mean, there wasn't that much to talk about.
That didn't involve the Dodgers. No.
Well, we're going to get into it here. Bob Uecker, the passing, was that before or after? That was before.
That was before. Yeah, that happened shortly after our last show.
That's right.
Later that week, yeah. So obviously we didn't have the show because of the national championship, but we would have been talking plenty of Bob last week, and right around that same time we got the Sasaki news. So
yeah, we got Hall of Fame news.
Yeah, it was a heck of a 2 weeks off to be able to fill our show, and I feel like that's what they were looking out for. They were like, hey, they need content. We got the content right here.
These guys suck. We've got to save them.
Scotty pointing out we skipped a week because that's what we do. Happy Monday to you as well, Scotty. Thanks.
Damn right. Consistency? Nah, we don't need it.
Well, then let's just go on ahead and get started since we were kind of talking about it. It takes us back to the last time we did a show, but the passing of Bob Uecker. Yes, very. I mean, not sudden. The man was would have actually turned 91 years old. I think yesterday, like sometime within the past 48 hours. And I saw a post mentioning that he would have been 91, and I can't remember if that was just today or what. But just before his 91st birthday, lived a long time, lived a full life, and I did not realize how impactful he was in the world in general. I mean, obviously everybody knows him from starring and being a part of the Major League movie franchise, and that's where a lot of people have exposure to him. But I didn't realize how much he just rubbed elbows in Hollywood and with the famous elites in general. Like he was a pretty popular guy, a pretty sought after guy too. Like, celebrities wanted to be around him, and he was an amazing person, an amazing broadcaster. You and I had spoken about it. He's easily up there on our Mount Rushmore of broadcasters, and he goes right there next to Vin Scully for my money. But Bob Uecker gone at the age of 90. One of the greats.
Exactly. We've got. I don't know if I'm able to throw the comment up there from Eric.
I got you from Eric. Yep.
Yeah. So. Eric, glad you chimed in, man. This is something we had always joked about, coworkers years back, but that is literally me as a commentator right there. That picture and just like that scene where he goes yard and goes, oh shit. And I just think, I mean, that was just his personality to an absolute T. And like you said, Scott, I mean, you're spot on with it. Like you didn't realize how impactful he really was. I mean, we knew obviously in the baseball realm, in Milwaukee and everything like that he was a legend, but my God, he was about as legendary as you're going to get. He's up there, like you said, around Jesus, Mount Rushmore, these announcers, man. Like, but it's, from the commercials to, the movie franchises, and the TV series he's been in, like, this guy, he was amazing and, self-deprecating, just loved picking on himself and just his stories. And man, I mean, baseball definitely lost a true legend. He was amazing. And man, yeah, it sucks. I feel bad for the people of Milwaukee who, they're not going to have, Mr. Baseball, doing their games. And that sucks because it's when you lose a voice like that, it makes it tough. But man, baseball definitely lost a good one in Bob Uecker.
Yeah, and I didn't realize how Milwaukee my man was. Grew up there.
Yeah.
There, could have had jobs anywhere across the country. Obviously, the talent level he had was very sought after. I'm sure any franchise would have paid boatloads of money for the man to leave Milwaukee, but he was true to himself, true to his hometown. He loved his hometown and stayed in Milwaukee pretty much his entire life.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the first time I actually heard him broadcasting games and not realizing that he was an actual broadcaster. This is my first exposure to him too. And not, being the movie, not realizing that, oh wait, no, he actually does that. That's
that's a real guy.
Well, and because I didn't watch Brewers games, and you didn't get Brewers games broadcast and back, at that time, you just didn't really know a whole lot about the local broadcast teams and pay much attention. And for me, it was just all Braves baseball on TBS. So I knew all those guys, and that was pretty much it for me. I guess I kind of knew about Ernie Harwell a little bit there, being up near Detroit.
Yeah.
And hearing his voice. So I didn't know about Ernie, but I had no idea that Bob was there in Milwaukee, and very infrequent that I got a chance to hear him because the Braves didn't play a whole lot. Milwaukee was in the American League for a time there, and then being in the Central, they didn't clash a whole lot. But always a good time to be able to listen to Bob when we got the chance, and it's gonna suck to not have him around this season. So,
that's the beauty of the MLB packages nowadays, that you can pick home and away broadcast for whoever, and the same with the radio. And it's awesome. It's really cool that we're able to do that because towards the end of Vince Scully's career, I mean, I just remember I'd be laying in bed, and I'd pop it on, listen to a Dodgers game just to hear Vin call the game, and it's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah, my college years, or I guess it would have been right out of college, my post-college years, when I'd first gotten my job and I was working late nights, I would get home and it would just be the West Coast games, either just getting started or wrapping up or whatever it may be. So I would, tune in and just have West Coast baseball on as background noise or whatever, but I never missed a chance to have Vin on. And those were the days when the Dodgers weren't hateable. So it was much easier to listen to Vin wax poetically, and I could listen to Vin even when they did start to needle me a bit. But I will say that the ultimate sign of respect, as far as I'm concerned, is that there are only two men that I would, if it was a Braves game that I was watching, there are only two people that I would ever switch over to listen to the opposing team's broadcast, and that was Vin and Bob. And I would do that just about every time that those two team plays, just to mix things up and give myself a break from hearing the same crews that the Braves use every game. You hear 81 times or whatever, but also to show the respect and the admiration that I had for those guys, and honestly not being able to hear them otherwise. So no other. I didn't do that for any other teams. Like if I got exposure to other teams broadcast, it was just in games that I wanted to tune in to listen to those guys, Niehaus and guys like that. Like I would specifically tune into their team's games to get that. But during Braves games, Bob and Vin, I allowed myself to switch over and listen to the games. And it was always funny to hear their stories about, some of the Braves players. And then just them relaying the Braves team that I knew well to their broadcasting, or their fans who obviously, when you're talking about LA, don't get as much exposure to the Braves. So
that's so true.
Certainly sucks to lose a legend in the game like that. So one more time for Bob.
Here's the pitch. Oh shit.
That's a transition that we use on our Craftbird Sports, and I'm I am going to make sure that I throw this in there.
That's just the best, man. That is like I laugh so hard every time I hear that, man. I love it. Absolutely love it.
It's fantastic. So, oh man, let's see. Scott pointing out that when the Dodgers weren't hateable, it's because they weren't winning. No, they were winning a little bit during that time. It just wasn't with as much
deferred money.
Well, deferred money, and it also wasn't so like, oh, they have an all-star team. It was more that cute little package that they had there when they had Matt Kemp and those guys, and it was like, oh, look at the Dodgers. They're good enough to get to the playoffs and disappoint. But, it was those years, but they just were less hateable than they are now. And speaking of the hateable Dodgers, they continue the off season of the rest of us just loathing them
just
and their
pissing off all of baseball.
We did get the final decision by Roki Sasaki on the last episode. He was narrowing down his choices, and he had narrowed down to the final three of the Padres, the Dodgers, and the Blue Jays. And lo and behold, just like we all knew, he ended up picking the Dodgers. I've heard nothing but the fact that everybody that was involved in said process that wasn't the Dodgers was very pissed off because they believed that in all their interviews and interactions with him, it was clear that he had chosen the Dodgers and was kind of just putting on a dog and pony show, which is odd because he had the choice to go anywhere. So there was no need to do that. I heard
why drag it on?
Yeah, I heard Jim Bowden talking about it, and it was like, you could have just said, hey, I'm picking the Dodgers. Like, this is it. Like, could have done it back in December and just said, hey, when the money's up, when the international pool money comes, I'm signing with the Dodgers. Thanks everybody for your interest. And that's it. But instead we got this whole big show. And I think, that doesn't help the Dodgers, right? Like the team's assuming that, that he already made this decision and that, any shot that they were doing, any presentations that they were making were all for naught in general. And that adds to a lot of the hateability with the Dodgers. It's like, it's not just them getting the guys at the end of the day. It's like how they go about getting them, or you hear the stories about how it kind of unfolds. So
that's the thing. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I would be as mad about it if they just obliterated the luxury tax. Like if there's like, screw it, you know what, we're going on, like, okay, fine. We see it, but all this deferred crap and then, pushing money, it's just, I don't know. It's just obnoxious. But like I said, if you tax their ass off, when they, by blowing through the luxury tax, threshold 4 or 5 times, then okay, that's fine. They're getting punished for it as well. But, I don't know. It's just obnoxious because it seems like it's just every freaking offseason they get something like that. And, Tanner Scott was another addition that they got. So they got the top reliever on the market. Of course, deferred money's involved in that one. I mean, it's going to suck for them when, when that deferred money actually kicks in, because, they're going to owe like $1 trillion, and it's going to suck for them. But, I guess, when you're winning championships, it's going to suck less, but,
Well, you bring that up, and I wasn't sure how deep we were going to go, how early we're going to just talk about, all that Dodger stuff and how it relates to the rest of the league. But I think one of my problems when you talk about the deferred money isn't even like the fact that they do the deferred money, and we know that there's other teams that do that.
Yeah.
It's that now it's become so blatant and obvious that it's just a way to manipulate the luxury tax and skirt having to pay that. Like you said, if they were just like, F it, we're gonna just take the
Yankees used to be.
Yes, like if you're just gonna sit there, if you're just gonna sit there and take the taxes and do all that, and the luxury tax works how it was intended. Like the spirit of the luxury tax is to make sure that if you're going over it each year, that like that's fine. You're free to spend as much money as you want, but then each year that's compounding on how much you owe and how much additional money you have to pay on top of what you're already, paying in payroll. If that was what they were doing, fine. But instead it's this clearly obvious abatement of the rules. And, I know baseball is sitting there like, well, they're not doing anything wrong. And I know that they absolutely love the fact that there's a villain, because every time, there's a super team built up, it's come into your city and, here, hate the Dodgers, spend your money. I get that part of it, but just for the general fan base and the state of the game, I kind of talked about this a few weeks back, and we were talking about the salary cap and the salary floor, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it. But It's just the idea now that it's kind of like the Dodgers and everybody else. Like even the Yankees aren't doing what the Dodgers doing. Like, and even what the Yankees did back when they spent a lot was different with the way the Dodgers are doing it now. And you just have fan bases of even teams that have put up quite a bit of money still feeling like, well, we're way behind the Dodgers at the end of the day. And I know a lot of playoffs, games got to get played, injuries, yada, 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 yada. But they've stacked the deck so much that, I mean, you can absorb all the injuries, you can absorb all the attrition, and still roll out a team full of all-stars. Like, that's where it becomes like a huge problem for me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's the issue with it all is, like you said, it's blatant. And I'm all for, like I said, blowing through the luxury tax.
Yeah, and Scotty pointing out that they still are paying $103 million in luxury tax. And that, again, that's fine. I don't have a problem with the fact that they're abiding by those rules. It's just they should be paying a lot more. And the
I was going to say they'd be hitting like the
stacking up.
Yeah.
Like,
the fourth level of it now.
They're making sure that they stay under where the penalties, it get really taxable. Like, and that's my problem. Like, they're not. It's obvious what they're doing.
And I guess and I've said it before on here that I don't care about the deferrals. That does not bother me.
No.
Every single team can do it, and that's the thing. Is like
it should just count. It should all roll into the same pool. Like if you're deferring it, the actual value of the contract should be what counts for that year's luxury tax.
Exactly. Yes.
Regardless of the deferrals. Then again, like baseball doesn't need a cap. We know they need a floor to get these other teams to spend. I'm not trying to get the Dodgers to stop spending or to cap their spending. What I'm trying to do is make sure that they're playing within the same rules and they feel the same penalties that any other team would feel by doing this, instead of using these deferrals to skirt that and essentially just playing with funny money. Like they're able to skirt the luxury taps or manipulate it so much that they never really feel the effects of it. And that's not what it was designed to do. It was designed to more or less have it be like the Yankees, where you get up to that threshold, you may spend over it for 2-3 years or whatever, but once you get to about that fourth year, it becomes burdensome and you got to start cutting back and you got to, cut loose on the payroll. And then, some of those players get thrown back into the pool, or that means they can't sign some of the other guys, and then other teams get an opportunity. And, that's what it's designed to do. But the Dodgers are just making it so that that's not happening. And they're just revolving door of superstars.
Yeah, and then that's the thing is like, you could sit there and instead of, deferring, Tanner Scott's, the majority of his contract, maybe they're going to be like, well, you know what, we'll hold off on this one. And, hell, give somebody else a chance to, to bring him in. It's just the deferral part, like you said, actively skirts it. And that's the issue that I have. Again, every single team can do it. And that's where I don't have the issue with it at all. But like you said, the way it counts, that's what needs to change. And until that happens, man, it's going to be, same soup, different bowl.
We got it. The CBA is coming up next year. It expires at the end of next season. And obviously this is going to be, but I think that this should be like, they've got to figure out how to close this loophole and make sure that everybody's playing with a more even playing field, and that involves, like we said, bringing in a floor, man. A floor is even more necessary than the cap, because you've got one team, a handful of teams at the top, and the Dodgers doing it to an extreme version, but that are spending money, and then you've got about 2/3 of the league that is sitting on their hands, not making any moves, not making any additions, actively cutting payroll every opportunity they get, making sure that they have the built-in excuse of playing the young guys because they're in a perpetual rebuild. And that's even worse for the game, because it's one thing if those fan bases in those cities feel disenfranchised by the fact that the Dodgers spend an exorbitant amount, but it's another thing when they're disenfranchised because their own team doesn't even spend what the Dodgers are paying for like 2 guys on their roster in a single season, when you don't even have, like, the floor should be somewhere around $100 million, like that these teams are spending on their individual payrolls, like at an absolute minimum. That would quickly balance things out. You'd certainly have more signings like the Oakland Athletics did with God, what's his
Oh,
name?
what the hell? I know.
From the
Luis
Mets. I'm not
Severino.
gonna say yes, Luis Severino, where you have a Luis Severino contract that makes everybody wonder what the hell is going on. But again, those teams then would at least have some semblance of talent instead of not spending it at all on anybody.
I like throw Eric's comment up. What he just about the deferred contracts. This is a great point. Limit deferred contracts to a limited number of players, like 1 year, like a franchise tag in the NFL. That's a great idea. I mean, you get one a year, utilize it how you want. If you want to use it, great. If you don't, then so be it. I would think most teams won't use it, but hell, the Dodgers have already done it twice. 3 or 4 times overall. Well, big contracts, that is. I think that's a good idea there to to approach it that way and kind of. I mean, it's a good way
because then you force the money to be on the books for each of those years up front instead of it not counting against the cap.
Yeah,
or counting against the tax rather.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Eric. Well done.
I was gonna say I like that.
That was really good. Yeah,
but but baseball does have a problem. It's not huge. It's the way that the game has just been. It's operated like this forever. But when you have these extremes and these oddities, something does have to happen because it can't just be that the Dodgers are stacking up these guys every single year, and it's like the inequality in baseball is going. It's already bad. It's only going to get worse. So.
1,000%. Yeah, it ain't changing.
Ryan joining us, and thanks for joining, Ryan, saying, "What's up, fellas?" He's absolutely shocked that Roki Sasaki ended up on the Dodgers, just like we are. Scott saying that deferred contracts don't bother him because the players are agreeing to take less money, same money, but lower future value. If I'm a team, I'd do that every single day. Well, sure.
Completely agree.
I'm not knocking the players for signing whatever contract they want. Again, I just have a problem with the way the Dodgers are using it to manipulate the tax. Like they are playing by the rules. Like it's the established rule. It's the way that everything was set up. I understand that. I'm not.
I think I'm more pissed that other teams aren't doing it. I think that's what pisses me off.
Well, I mean,
it's just one,
Yes and no, but I don't know. The way that the Dodgers have been able to now do this, though, is because when you stack up a team of superstars like this, well, of course, all the guys want to come play. So, sure, I'll take a deferred contract or do this. Like, if you've got those guys that are already there, it's much easier. Like, you're not going to get like the lower spending teams have to actually overpay guys just to give it, and they're certainly not going to take deals that defer money on them. Like they're going to want all that money up front to come to those teams, because again, they know that they're not going to win if they go to those teams, or that it's going to be a while before the winning does start. So the Dodgers,
but that's on the specific team. For example, the Toronto Blue Jays, like they're not getting anybody because, I mean, they're going to struggle. I mean, let's be real. It's not looking positive. So, I mean, they can't even get it figured out with Vladdy right now. So,
Eric's saying that as a player, he'd actively seek a deferred contract.
Damn right. Exactly. But that's the thing, though, is I mean, like, it's on these teams, though, to, spend money to win. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
You spend money and you win, everything's going to pay off for you.
And at this point, it's not even just spending money; it's spending anything at all. I mean, some of these teams are really they're not doing a single thing. Like their payroll is set, and it's like it's got to be under $80 million every year, no matter what. And so teams go an entire offseason and don't make a single move. Or whatever moves that they make is only sending money out rather than money in, so that there's just profits. And that's not obviously what the league wants, to just have teams that are just sitting there collecting a check.
Yeah.
But it doesn't help the entire sport. Like when teams are doing that, because it's like I said, you've got disenfranchised fan bases that are like, look, my team's just not even going to spend. Why am I watching? Why am I tuning in? I know that it's basically the elites and everybody else.
Exactly.
So they need to institute something that forces these bottom feeders to spend, or these owners that refuse to open up the checkbooks because they don't have to, and because they know that they'll get a bigger cut of the revenue sharing if they're under a certain threshold. disincentivize that like immediately. Like that's got to be one of the number one priorities in the CBA.
You shouldn't be rewarded for doing jack shit. That's the problem.
And usually I go into the CBA years or when it gets close, dreading it and thinking, man, I really hope there's not a work stoppage. But I think I'm ready for one this time if it means getting things right. If it means
there needs to be a reset, man.
Yeah, like I'm usually not for it, and it usually concerns me because my biggest fear is that baseball won't recover in general because there's been so many work stoppages, and every time it takes a long time for the league to recover. And I don't know how much built-in popularity it has left to be able to do that. So they've got to get it right. But if that's what it takes this time, then that's what it takes, because it can't continue to go on against, or otherwise it's just going to die on the vine, because they didn't fix it. So
exactly. Yep. That's what sucks, man. But again, you got to have a hard reset. And I think this is what, once that CBA expires, that's what's going to happen. And it's good. I think it'll be good for the game. I mean, we talked about it last episode. Fortunately, it's got to happen to get this shit figured out, because again, these teams are getting rewarded for not doing a single thing is highly annoying. And, like I said, spend money, just put guys around, the talent you've got, and continue to build up your farm system. There you go. It's not difficult. It really isn't. But some of these ownership groups or owners, they don't want to. But then, everyone gets pissed at the guys like Steve Cohen or anything like that who have a ton of money or just spending, money because they want to win. Good for them. Like, good on you. It's just, I don't know. It's annoying as hell.
Well, and there we mentioned too the Blue Jays being one of the teams that have struggled this offseason, but they did sign Anthony Santander, got that locked up. Somebody finally took their money. Outlook still not great, but there's a chance that the Mets and their owner have pissed off Pete Alonso enough that he may end up in Toronto. Reports, rumblings that he's close to a deal, or at least using them to negotiate against the Mets, or try to put pressure on the Mets to come to the deal with the better table. But this past weekend, Cohen, frustrated with the way things are going, voiced his displeasure in public, saying that he didn't like the situation, didn't like the opportunity or the contracts, the situations they were being presented. And feels like it may have gone as far as it can go with Pete Alonso, and that they're moving forward, as if they may or may not have him, but sounding more likely that they're not. I just think it's hilarious that they spent all the money in the world to sign Soto, who is a Scott Boras client, and then on their own team have Pete Alonso, who signed with Scott Boras just a year or two ago, knowing that this was coming. To get paid, and knowing that this was coming. The Mets sat there and now find themselves with no first baseman, or lack of a first baseman who actually had a pretty decent season by his standards, back more in line with his standards than a couple years ago, which is why I think that the Mets ultimately waited through his free agent years, because a couple years ago he had kind of a down year. But had a great season this year, kind of forced her end. You spend $700 million on Soto, and now you're telling me you're not going to finish. You're not going to go to the finish line with Pete Alonso after paying two 40-year-old pitchers $40 million each at one point to barely pitch for you, that you traded away and paid. They paid money to have them not pitch for them. But you won't pay Pete Alonso what he's asking for, which is only, like, at this point, I think he's down to around $27 million. Like, they've offered all sides. I'm not defending Pete, and I'm certainly not defending the Mets. I think this whole thing is hilarious as a Mets hater. But man, Steve Cohen is a weird dude to go to this far with everything he's done so far with the team and just throwing money around. But he draws a hard line in the sand with one of his own guys and one of the more popular players amongst the fan base right now. Like,
that's the same damn example as up north. Like, the same thing with the Jays, man. Like, the Jays have this unicorn budget for $700 million, but then they're not going to go out and pay Vladdy. Like, I mean, seriously, it's the same thing, and I don't get it. Hell, it could pay off for the Jays because, I mean, like you said before, Pete Alonso could be heading north, which would be intriguing because that would move Vladdy over to third base. But and add a hell of a lot more pop in that lineup. But yeah, I don't understand. You've got these guys, that develop and everything like that, and then you just kind of cast them aside. I don't know. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. And then he's out, bitching and moaning at the Mets, almost like a Mets fest type situation.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like their fan fest.
Yeah, their fan fest.
Using that to talk to the fans and connect with the fans, but at the same time, clearly negotiating through the media and making sure that the message gets back to Pete and Scotty there, negotiating this deal. But I mean, I don't know why it's
what
weird.
Benefit?
I never understand. You spent all the money to go out and get an outsider in Soto. You spent all the money to go get an outsider in Lindor. And then when it comes time to pay your own guys, you're like, we're not going to go that far with you. Gave the road to the two guys outside. Like it sends the wrong message to the clubhouse if you're me. And again,
1,000%.
I don't care. I hope the Mets crash and burn and go back to being the Mets. This last year was an aberration. They certainly overperformed what the expectation was, and I would very much like it if they'd go back to the expectations that we had for them last year. But at the same time, it's just very head scratching the way they're trying to do this. And why pay $700 million for Soto if you're not going to protect him with Pete Alonso? Now you don't have anybody. You're in a situation where if you don't end up signing him, you don't have anybody there to protect him. It's dumb. It's real dumb.
None of it makes sense.
If you're Soto, aren't you kind of like, hey guys, I came here to win, so like go ahead and give him his money. I mean, he knows that the Mets are a better team with Pete Alonso, right? He's got to be sitting there, at least asking around, hey, this is going to happen, right? I thank you for the $700 million, but I'm also trying to win.
Yeah,
I guess at that point, Steve Cohen would be like, shut the hell up. I gave you $700 million. So
fair enough. Okay. But I want protection in this lineup for the love of God. I don't get it, man.
From a team construction standpoint, it's very baffling.
Yeah.
So.
I just don't understand teams that do that. Yeah, they just cast their own guys aside. None of it makes sense.
Oh well. Again,
you don't care.
I don't really care, and I honestly at this point I very much hope that Alonso ends up in Toronto, and then also has a career year. No, I know you do, but I want him to go to Toronto and just kill it, just mash, and then, like I said, and in turn, the Mets also kind of take a step back from there because I mean, it's not like they're going to lose a whole lot of games with Soto, they've put enough of a team together to be fine, but you went from kind of like this almost championship contender and losing very little of that team to now losing a big part of that team and arguably the most popular player on the team potentially. It's hard to move forward or say that you're a better team going into the next year when you do something like that, even if you did bring in a Juan Soto who has all the talent in the world. But I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see how it plays out. I hope he gets his money in Toronto though. That'll make me happy.
I'm with you, Scott. I agree.
Let's move to the Hall of Fame, which was announced. The Hall of Fame class of 2025 has arrived, and as anticipated and as suspected, Ichiro Suzuki, a slam dunk nominee. Of course, not unanimous because baseball writers are, at the end of the day, baseball writers, and there's one lone nut out there who won't show his face
in every group.
Won't show his face. Won't expose his ballot. That did not vote for Ichiro. One vote away from being unanimous, but also going in with him. CC Sabathia of the once Cleveland Indians, and long time coming, 15 years, long time coming for Billy Wagner elected to the Hall of Fame as a reliever. Again, last year on the ballot, 15 years ago, he had retired and waited so long and saw his numbers go up, down, left, and right, and just kept inching toward. And finally, Billy Wagner was awarded with the Hall of Fame. And so those three inducted in the 2025 class, a very solid class, a very deserving class, and I'm happy to see all three members, even if CC, as you tried to mutter under your breath, spent a lot of his time with the Yankees. I prefer to think of him as
an
Indian first, and a
Brewer, or even a Brewer. Yeah,
yes, a Brewer.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Him with the Yankees. I'm with you.
Brewers legend, CC.
Yes. Hey, you see right there. We got it,
man. But your thoughts on the class and what these three meant in their time in the game?
Nailed it. I mean, they absolutely nailed it. I mean, Ichiro, when the announcement was happening or whatever, I was sitting there and I was, my boys were down there watching with me, and I was telling my oldest, I was like, dude, you have no idea how freaking good Ichiro was. Like, he was just incredible, from, his approach at the plate, just the way he hit. I mean, it was, that Japanese style of hitting, which it's intriguing as hell. And it's so, it's unique. But my God, his arm in the outfield, holy shit. Like, that was, truly incredible. I mean, overall, Ichiro again was a slam dunk. How he was not unanimous is, again, I said there's one asshole in every group, and we found one there. But it was a no doubter for him. CC Sabathia, just what he provided, from his time in Cleveland and then being dealt to Milwaukee and then going to the Yankees. Good on CC. He was a fun pitcher to watch. Just that big frame, just a hell of a pitcher, man. Hell of a pitcher to watch. Athletic, just a dominant left-handed pitcher, and he proved it. And he was a no doubter. But the one I'm most thrilled about, Billy Wagner. How it took Billy this long to get on or to get in is just stunning to me. It should have been many years ago, but finally he's in, and he is so deserving of it. Little dude, just could absolutely fire it in there. Left-handed. The only reason he was a lefty is because he broke his right arm, couldn't throw. So switched over to left, and my God, and the rest is history.
I love that's part of his story.
I know, like, it's crazy to think about, but during that time,
I couldn't get to the Hall of Fame of McDonald's with both of my arms capable, and this man was able to get to the Hall of Fame of baseball because he picked up a baseball when being forced to throw with his left arm, and it turned out to be a Hall of Fame decision. Like, how crazy!
Crazy, yeah.
Like, if he had, like, who knows if he makes the Hall of Fame if he's just a righty? Like, if he threw with his right arm, if he would have been as successful, probably not, because of just the nature of being a lefty and what he threw and how the ball came out and the spin rates that I'm saying. Like, I think that's really what helped Billy Wagner a lot, is the advanced metrics. It sucks that it took this long to recognize his greatness, and we needed advanced metrics to get there. But if that's what it took, at least people finally woke up to the fact that, like, despite the fact that he only pitched 900 innings, and despite the fact that he retired at that last year with the Braves was incredible. I remember, like, thinking when they signed him, I was excited because I had always been a really big Billy Wagner fan. From his days in Houston, was one of my guys that I enjoyed watching that didn't play for the Braves. So, and then he kind of bounced around after he left Houston. He played in Philly, he played in New York. But the Braves signed him, and he ended up playing his final year in the league with them. And it was an honor to be able to watch him come out. And I was shocked at how well he had pitched in that final season, because I think the year prior or 2 years, like, you could see he was starting to, maybe age was starting to catch up to him just a little bit. But that final year, it was like, this is vintage Billy Wagner. Even if he had lost just a little bit off the fastball, he was still able to just dominate guys. And I remember thinking we were kind of right on that cusp where, we're about to enter the window of like real contention again. And it was like, man, if Billy comes back for one more year, we'd like, you could really do it. And then that was it. He was done. It just suddenly, and it's like, oh, I mean, you knew he was 38, but it was clearly he wasn't slowing down enough that you thought he'd retire. And Mariano had just pitched into his 40s and was, dominating. So it made total sense that he was going to keep playing, but much respect to him. He said he wanted to spend more time with his family and had spent all, given his entire life to baseball and wanted to be with his family. Chose to hang him up and made the right choice. Yeah, right. Made the right choice because it was a Hall of Fame career. So yes, definitely happy about Wagner.
The most unassuming player too. Like you look at him, dude's not. I mean, he's not big.
Which is funny. On the mound, he looks intimidating. Like when he's standing there on the mound, you don't have the framework of him being 5'10", and he doesn't look 5'10" standing on top of the mound, facing guys. He looked intimidating as hell, like scary. Yeah. But I mean, you just see him walking out and about. He's not a very big dude, like at all.
He pumps at 100 right by you, and you're like, "What the hell just happened?" Like,
well, and just before the era where everybody threw 100, like that's what was special about Wagner was like his changeup was 97 at a time when guys who hit triple digits, it was a big deal. It wasn't like it is now where guys hit 100 nightly or 22 times a game, and that's every start, or and relievers come out throwing 100 every reliever. If you don't throw 100, you're on the cusp of getting cut. Like it wasn't like that. So Wagner, hitting 99 and hitting 100 on occasion was a big deal, and it was really fun to watch. That was, and that was just before Aroldis Chapman showed up on the scene. And I think Aroldis Chapman is really what ushered it in, where it's like, it was amazing when he hit 103, and then it just felt like overnight, oh yeah, this is just the new norm now. Like this is no longer like an aberration or like anything real special. Everybody's able to hit 100 with pretty regularity.
Yeah, he was ahead of his time.
Yeah, no, he was really good and really dominant. Like I said, the numbers bear that out, and the advanced metrics helped a lot with that. But Ichiro, man, on the other side of things, God, was he? I didn't get to watch him a lot because he played in Seattle, and that it was the time zone difference or whatnot. And obviously at that time, even with interleague play, they barely ever played against Atlanta. So I didn't have a whole lot of opportunity. But I mean, watching the games when I did get to watch them and the highlights, and you talked about his unique batting stance. And I think the coolest thing about Ichiro to me was you had successful pitchers. You had Hideo Nomo, and you had a couple other guys that pitched successfully well, but there weren't any Asian guys that like position players that had come over and been able to stick. They had come over with kind of some fanfare and would end up being like, decent backups or just kind of okay everyday players, but no superstars, no standouts, despite whatever pedigree they had coming from an Asian team. And here came Ichiro, and everybody had said, he's going to be the real deal. This is going to be the first one that succeeds. But he was 27, and there was this question like, is he like, great, is he going to come over here? But like, is he going to hit the wall like shortly thereafter? Because, he's already 27 years old. And it's like he came over as a 27-year-old rookie, and he might as well have been 21 because he played past his 40, being 40 years old. He retired when he was 42. And I mean, he was, besides the fact that obviously he couldn't handle playing his body failed him in the way of being able to play every day. He again was just as productive in his later years as he was in the beginning. And he had his crazy workout regimens and his crazy routines, and he stuck with them all the way through his career. And I wish we could have seen Ichiro come over when he was early 20s. I wish we had gotten to see the totality of his career, because I truly do believe that he would have ultimately broken Pete Rose's record.
1,000%.
No doubt in my mind that would have happened, because even without that, he still put up over 3,000 hits, and it's just incredible career, fun guy to watch. And my first actual moment of seeing him was the play that everybody remembers when you talk about that arm. But I remember it was like that Wednesday night baseball game at the Athletics, and it was my first time being able to watch him live. And it was like, okay, let's see what, I've heard all about Ichiro and everything. But you knew about how he hit and the fact that he was, a singles machine and all that, but you didn't really know, you hadn't heard as much about the defense. And what little you had heard about, it wasn't like raved about like his offense was. That cannon that he fired from right for that first laser that I saw, it was like, whoa. Like Ichiro isn't just good, like he's good. Like this guy, it's more than what was advertised as far as I was concerned. And he hit the ground running and just kept going. Like you couldn't get him out. You couldn't run on him. He stole bases nonstop. I mean, he didn't hit a whole lot of home runs, but many people say it was by choice and that he had a crazy amount of power. I firmly believe that he could have hit it in home runs because whenever he did, it looked so effortless, just like, when he was hitting a single. And I mean, that the way that Ichiro played baseball, that kind of Asian style, we call it, as far as like the batting stance and the way they come out of the box to the left-handed hitters. To me, nobody's done it better, even though there's been plenty of people that have done it before and after him. Like that to me isn't just Asian style. That's Ichiro style. Like he made that style into his own. He owned that bat. Like nobody has been able to replicate that. Even though, like I said, there's a ton of guys that have come over from Asia that have a very similar way of getting out of the box and, swinging at the ball.
Yeah. The crazy part is when I coached baseball in high school, we had a kid on our freshman team he was from Japan, and he was a pitcher and he was pitcher and infielder, but his batting stance was along the same lines. Like I remember watching him during tryouts. And just the way he would lean into it just like Ichiro. And I was like, holy shit. And I remember telling one of the coaches, I was like, man, that is legitimately like a Japanese like culture thing when it comes to like baseball. Mm-hmm. And just watching it was impressive. And then even when this kid was pitching too, it was the same situation. Like he'd go up and then like pause. And then it was just, he had kids so messed up on timing. It was hilarious. Because, how many kids in Cincinnati, Ohio face a Japanese pitcher,
right?
But especially in high school. But it was like so fun and unique to watch, seeing and being around, a different culture in terms of, of a player. And all I could think about when I first saw him hit was Ichiro, because I was like, my God, that's Ichiro. Like that is, he obviously watched him growing up and, it translated to the baseball field. It's so cool to see, and it was, unique to watch, firsthand. And I could only imagine what it was like to, be in Seattle and see Ichiro every single day. We got a chance to watch him a good amount, but not as much as, as we do now, with the ability, with the baseball packages and everything like that. But man, like you said, man, it was just hell of a career, just unbelievable, just all around, man.
And then not to leave him out because, CC being part of this.
No, you hate him.
No. And you want to know why? You're going to laugh, but no, I can't. There's no possible way that I can hate it. I didn't like very much that he wore that uniform. I hated that he wore that uniform and that he chose to sign there. It sucks because I remember when he was a free agent, it came down to them and the Angels, and because he was from California, there was a lot of speculation that he was going to end up signing with the Angels, and I so wanted him to sign with the Angels because this was before the Angels were complete dog shit like they are now. They would have been a much more competitive team, but unfortunately he made that choice to sign with the Yankees, but it was through gritted teeth. I had to root against him, but I couldn't root against him because he's black, man. Come on. There's like no black baseball players. I can't root against the handful that there are. And so it was one of those things that no matter how much I hated the fact that he wore those pinstripes, I rooted for CC. And then, if you know the personal story about it, he had all those all the drinking problems and the issues with alcohol, and so rooted for him to get through that too, and he did, and you know, he
looks
he
good.
always, yeah, well, and then he, you know, during his career, he struggled with his weight at times too, but he, you know, he managed to get all that things under control and keep his life under control, and it's great to see that, you know, he was able to make the Hall of Fame because, you know, when he was coming up with Cleveland, he was real dominant and he was real good, and obviously Cleveland wasn't going to be able to keep him. It's like, but I don't think I thought he was really like on a Hall of Fame trajectory until way later, because I paid much less attention to him when he went to New York. But I would still see his numbers and think, oh, you know, he went there too when they used to sign a lot of guys. There would always be like a handful of guys that, I mean, I lack for a better term, I'll just coin it like Snyder. It's like they're just not New York guys. You never knew if a free agent that signed there. I mean, Randy Johnson turned out to not be a New York guy. It just the town, the way the franchise was, for whatever reason, some guys just weren't built to pitch for the New York Yankees or play for the New York Yankees, despite whatever pedigree they may have had as players prior.
Yeah.
But CC, I do remember thinking, like, oh, I wonder if he's going to go there and fold. Like, is he going to be able to handle it? And he did. Like, he succeeded.
Oh, he did. Yeah.
Even though they came up short a lot of times on their chances for titles or whatever. It wasn't because of him. I mean, he was a rock, and he was consistently out there winning between 15 and 20 games a year. So,
I mean, let's be real. His Yankee career is what cemented his Hall of Fame legacy.
Sure.
I mean, that's, because he was able to.
Length. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That. Yeah. I mean, he continued his dominance, and hell of a career for him too, and
Scott Sergis, a Tigers fan, he watched a lot of them in Cleveland, and he thought he had Hall of Fame talent. I mean, it wasn't necessarily that he didn't have Hall of Fame talent. I just didn't know if his career would go that way. Like, because he had the weight problems, and he was a bigger dude. And I remember just thinking, like, I don't know if he's going to hold up.
He's going to hold up.
I figured he was going to break down early on, and he would end up being one of those bulk relief guys or guys that gave you 5 good ones at a time when 5 good ones wasn't, what it is today. Now if you give me 5 good ones, you're Hall of Fame back at the time when pitchers started to fade and they became just like, give me 5 innings guys. I thought that's kind of how his career would end up going. So to see that, the fact that he ended up like consistently winning, close to 20 games every year. Like, I guess I didn't think that's how it would go. Like, I thought he would break down sooner.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Would end up looking more like David Wells. The back end of David Wells' career is kind of what I thought. Like,
that's a great way to put. That's
that was what I thought. Like, I was like, oh, he'll look like David Wells at the back end of their career. It was like where he's good, but he's not Hall of Fame. Like, he would have flashes and years where you're just like, oh yeah, that's right, he's a really dominant pitcher. But then years where you'd be like, oh yeah, he's an overweight dude at the end of his career. But congratulations to all the new inductees. Like I said, it's very worthy class. We talked about this when it announced, but we didn't talk about it pre-show. I want to wrap up the show and everything, this conversation, by talking about how this next class is crap.
Shit.
It is craptastic.
Dude, they are too
the first year, I'm gonna Google this now. First year nominees for the Hall of Fame in 2026. It is a very lackluster crew. Hold up.
Like, this sucks. This class sucks ass.
Like, it's been a while since I saw a class of first year eligible players that you're just like, yikes. There's not a there's not really a Hall of Fame in there. Not only on the, like, it's not just, I don't think there's a first ballot in there. I don't think that there's a Hall of Famer period. Like, it is.
What I tell you though,
guys.
I told you when you said this, and you're like, man, like, look at this, and I go, oh my god, I forgot how bad it was. But I said, well, the good thing is they'll be able to backfill now.
Yes,
with all the guys that should have been.
Yeah, any
Jesus.
guys that have been hanging on. I mean, if Andrew Jones doesn't get in on this next one, I'm going to be very upset. But I found
But he
the
ain't
list.
getting in. If you can't get in over this damn class here.
Well, yeah, no, I
Yeah,
mean this
Jesus
is it.
Christ.
This is definitely it for the likes of Andrew Jones. I mean, like again, I've always thought he was a Hall of Famer, but
Yeah.
this absolutely has to be the year. I think next year it's Carlos Beltran and Andrew Jones, and then I don't know who else.
Yeah.
Maybe nobody. That might be it. But next year we're looking at the first year eligible people being Ryan Braun, giant cheater, Shin Soo Chu, career guy, Edwin Encarnacion, guy, Gio Gonzalez, guy, Alex Gordon, name, but mostly a guy.
Yeah.
Cole Hamels is probably, honestly, at the end of the day, probably the biggest name on this list and the closest, like to me, should garner the most votes out of any of these guys. Like, come the closest, but there's no way. The back end of his career derailed him. Like he probably was, he probably was there early on, but then the way his career ended unfolded. Kelvin Herrera, Matt Kemp, same way. The start to Matt Kemp's career and the way that he came out with those MVPs in his early years, you would have thought, wow, he's definitely going to be on Hall of Fame. But then he just fell apart. And talk about CeCe's body not betraying him. Matt Kemp went from like one of the most felt center fielders that you ever seen to just dumper. He's just it was like he ate his way out of center field. It's like back when LA wasn't hateable. I was again black guy. I was a huge Matt Kemp guy, but man, he just ate his way right out of center field. No ways Hall of Fame. Howie Kendrick, another fun player, one that I enjoyed watching. No ways he Hall of Famer. Jason Kipnis, Nick Markakis, former Brave legend Nick Markakis, no way. Daniel Murphy, Hunter Pence, very quirky, fun career, a lot of moments and stuff to remember his career by, but not Hall of Famer. Rick Porcello, Jeff Samardzija was more famous for playing at Notre Dame. Edison Volquez and Matt Wieters. Like I said, ultimately, I mean, had Ryan Braun not been a big, giant, phony-ass cheater, he probably would have gotten in. He eliminated himself the minute that he blamed the FedEx guy. And then the rest of the list, like I said, it's just a bunch of guys. So we're looking forward to next year being a year to backfill and hopefully this is Andrew Jones, man. This is his year. We got to get Andrew in there. So
God, I forgot, man. I forgot. Ooh, how bad that is.
It's not good. Oh. It is not. It is like when I first saw the list, I was like, is there like a requirement? Like, what's the requirement to even get on the ballot? Because you don't just put everybody on the ballot.
Yeah, I know.
Like, it looked like they were like, well, we've got to have some names. So here, just put some guys' names.
Exactly. Let's draw them out of a hat and just throw them on there.
Yeah, like this, because nothing, like, these were like all-star guys, like, guys.
Like Shin Soo Chu? Like, are you shitting me?
Yeah, Shin Soo Chu. How is he?
I freaking loved him. But
he was a fun player to watch. He had some fun years. So, but what? Hall of Fame? Nah.
Like some of these names, I was like, Jesus. Like,
man, it's rough. But yeah, we'll get some guys in there. Yeah, and Scott, he said he would vote for one guy, Hamels. I think that's definitely the consensus is that if there's one, right, you put a gun to my head and said one of these guys gets a vote, it would be Hamels.
Edinson Volquez.
And I honestly have a little bit of beef with Hamels, not just because he was a Philly, but because the Braves signed him. He promptly pitched 3 innings or threw 3 pitches and then got hurt for the rest of the season. They paid him $20 million, I believe, to throw 3 pitches. That mother. Like that, it was one of AA's like very first signings, and he was when he came in, and I think maybe it wasn't 20, it was more like 14, but it was some exorbitant amount of money for him to not pitch at all. And it was one of those that I'm pretty sure he was injured before he signed the deal, because mysteriously shortly after the deal was signed, it was like, oh, he's hurt and they're gonna have to shut him down. And then turned out, oh yeah, he's not going to pitch for like the whole season. Came back in September, threw 3 innings, and then was shut down for the rest of the year. It's like money well spent. Money well spent. So
Well
thank you,
spent.
Cole Howells. You've earned your Hall of Fame vote here for me.
God, it's crazy. Freaking unbelievable.
Good times. But I think that's gonna do it for us, man.
I thought we were gonna go longer, man, but
that's what she said.
Well played. Well played.
But you know, around here, it's not about the length; it's about the quality.
Exactly.
And I think that we did a damn fine job. Thank you to all of those who joined the show in the chat. We appreciate it. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, this has been another episode of the Backwards K Baseball Show. You can find us where you find all of your fine podcasts. We're on Facebook. We're on X or Twitter, whatever the hell they're calling it these days. The Impact Sports Cincinnati Network, as well as the Craft Brewed Sports Podcasting Network. And we go live here just about every Monday-ish here on YouTube.
Whenever we feel like it.
Yeah, there's I was going to say, there's a slow time, but hey, we're almost there.
We got college baseball coming up, though.
2 more weeks, and we got some things in the pipeline we're working on for you guys. We got some interviews lined up, so stay tuned. We may not be here next Monday, but we will definitely be here within the next 2 weeks because we have some things planned and things lined up. So thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate it. We appreciate the support, and thank you guys, as always, for watching. This has been Backwards Cave Baseball. For Chris, I am Scott. We'll catch you guys later. Good night, everybody.